no need for me to introduce this man. He just introduced himself, the Guardian of Chaos.
Maurice, thanks for having me on. That was a kick-ass opening. I was jamming out, and that's right. It's me, it's the G.O.C. And the G.O.C. stands for the Guardian of Chaos. Thanks for having me here on GP Productions, brother. It doesn't get any better than that. And a big shout out to everybody across the pond, everybody over there in Ireland. I greatly appreciate you having me on, brother.
Yeah, thanks very much, man. And funny enough, like, this is based in Ireland, but most of our views actually come from the States. Because of the guests we have on, we'd have a lot of American guests on, particularly in the wrestling field, as you touched on, like Evan Ginsberg and a few writers and different people. Now, next week I have another former WWE writer on as well, Brian Solomon. So just trying to get as many people that are kind of involved in the business, whether it be refereeing, ring announcers, yourself being a former manager. It's good to get like aspects, I think, from people from all angles of the business, if you will.
Well, again, I greatly appreciate it, and I've followed your channel, I've subscribed, and you have some excellent videos out there. I've seen the one with Evan Ginsberg. I've seen the ones with Mario Mancini. I even saw with Bird and Ginger Lynn, and all the different personalities that you bring on. And I'm looking forward to Brian Solomon, another guy who's an incredible reporter and writer. I think he's been in the business 20 or 25 years. And Evan Ginsberg, it doesn't get any better than that. 350 days, the wrestler. Yeah, that was an interesting conversation, Maurice.
Yeah. For yourself, man, like the wrestling world, it's a crazy world. How did it start for you, or when did you decide that you wanted to kind of dip your toes into it? And once you're in it, you're never out. That's what I always say to people.
Well, certainly a crazy world, but I'm blessed and fortunate. I go back to being a fan in the early 70s as a 8, 9, 10-year-old boy going to the local arenas here in the Constitution State, whether it be the New Haven Coliseum, the Hartford Civic Center, going up to the Boston Garden or down to Madison Square Garden. We are literally stuck here in the tri-state northeast area in some of the most famous arenas, whether it be, as I said, Boston Garden, Madison Square Garden. You could even throw in the Jersey Meadowlands. So as a young boy in the 70s, my first match that I witnessed as a fan, because let's face it, we're all fans, we're all marks, I don't get offended by that, was Bruno Sammartino, Stan the Man Stasiak, Tor Kamada, the Valiant Brothers. I go back to those days in the early 70s, got hooked on it. My parents, Maurice, said, let's take this kid to the live matches. He'll see what it's really all about, and he'll never watch it again, and we won't have to stay up till midnight and watch it on WOR out of New York. And so they took me there, and I was hooked forever. We did backyard wrestling in the 70s before people knew what backyard wrestling was. I remember imitating and going out and getting our own shirts made of the Valiant Brothers and Johnny, Jimmy, and Jerry. And then as I got into high school, stayed a fan, went to college at Southern Connecticut. From there, at 21 years old, I want to say this is 1984, Maurice, Quest facility, legendary training facility here in this New England tri-state area. You know it. You've heard Mario talk about it, and from Paul Roma and Tony Altamori and David Schultz and Dave Barbie and Mark Thomas and Big Steve Tracy, and the list goes on and on with guys that came through there and even trained there. I went there for a few weeks, thought I was in great shape. Again, I got a little bit late of a start, probably 21, I want to say I was, and ran into Mario, Tony Altamori, and they beat me, Maurice, not like they do now at all. And I'm no disrespect against anyone. They're all great athletes. They all train very, very hard. I respect anybody in any capacity that steps into the ring. They beat me from pillar to post. I basically, after shortchanging on the tuition, walked out of there with my tail between my legs and realized that I was not at that point in great shape. Like I said, played sports, athlete, the whole 9 yards. Just, it didn't make it. So I had to walk away, be humble. And from there, it goes on to just a long story. I went on to the Department of Corrections. I served in the prison system for 25 years, but I never lost that dream or that hope. And being a fan, over 5 decades as a mark, a historian, a student of the game, a scout, whatever you want to call it. And then over 3 decades as a professional wrestling manager, where I've managed over 20, 25 WWE Hall of Famers. So in '89, I hooked up with a friend of mine, Lenny, who's now also on law enforcement. '88, '89, traveled down and hooked up with the Samoan SWAT team, Freebird Michael Hayes, Jack Victory, Ron Simmons, Butch Reed, in that era, even before Scott Steiner had signed with WCW. And we got a chance to travel, and the Road Warriors were feuding with the SST at that time. So I was blessed and fortunate to be able to travel around from different states back in that era after not making it at the school. Years later, hooking up, in the early '80s, say 5 years later, and learning the business. I got to sit backstage in the dressing room, the hotels, the restaurants, and listen to the legends from WCW who were young themselves at that, but to hear of the ring psychology. And I remember leaving the Baltimore arena and traveling with the SST, and Michael Hayes was in the vehicle. And, I'm just a fan at that point. I'm still trying to research and having broken into the business, leaving the arena and talk about the real heat and kayfabe being alive. And there were a good 50 or 60 fans waiting out of the ramp at the Baltimore arena, throwing water bottles and beer cans because the SST was in there and Michael Hayes. And just to be able to experience that. Now, at that point, I'm in my middle 20s. I don't end up making my managerial debut because I did not want to give up. I wasn't going to leave the Department of Corrections. I had 2 kids at the time. So I had to go with the bread and butter. Thank God that I did that, but never lost that dream. And then went back in 1992 and made my official debut in the independents, from everywhere from Rocky Jones, Gino Caruso, Iron Mike Sharp, Johnny Rods, in the independents all over the Northeast New England area as an independent professional wrestling manager, molded after all of my different influences, whether it be Captain Lou Albano, Jesse Ventura, Bobby Heenan, Freddie Blassie. So, we're a little over 8 minutes in here. I just want to, your fans don't know me. I call myself the most well-known unknown. I've been around a long time. But so just to give the fans a backstory, then from there, 92, all the way through the 90s, and I'm getting ahead of myself, and we could talk about that. But that's how it started. That's how I originally, that's why Mario and I and the guys at Paradise Alley, from Paul Roma and especially Mario, we go back over 30 years. We had lost touch for a little while and then rehooked back up together. And of course, now I do the commentary and broadcasting at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. So I hope we can delve into that too. So that's the whole connection here, Maurice. As I ramble on here, Cheap Heat Productions, baby.